For as long as we can remember, Volkswagen has been promising the world that it would be the leader in electric vehicle technology, showcasing electric concept car after electric concept car at major auto shows around the world. And in more recent months, Volkswagen executives have continued to play up the company's plans for EVs, promising that we'll see the first of its new next-generation long-range electric cars hitting the market by 2020, with range and performance matching that of Tesla's cars, but at a fraction of the price. And in the last month alone, we've seen Volkswagen lay out its roadmap for future productions, leaving a plan to convert as many of its existing production facilities to all-electric models over the next 5 to 10 years. So far, all of this has been met with skepticism by many in the electric car world, including myself. After all, we are talking about Volkswagen, a company which was responsible for one of the biggest pollution scandals in living memory. But earlier this week, Volkswagen announced it would be ending all internal combustion engine development by 2026, something which some outlets took as another indication that Volkswagen is really serious about its transition to electric vehicles. The reality, however, and this is something that's true of most mainstream automakers, is a little different, and I'm going to explain it all. So first, let's clear up some misconceptions about that statement from Volkswagen. While it did say it would cease development of internal combustion engines, that does not mean that it will stop producing internal combustion engines in 2026. Instead, it means that Volkswagen will launch its last generation of internal combustion engines around that time, as well as the last vehicle or vehicle models designed to use an internal combustion engine. Given that Volkswagen had to pay more than €27 billion in fines for its part in the Dieselgate scandal and has announced massive investment in electric vehicle drivetrain tech, the news that it's ditching internal combustion engines wasn't exactly a surprise. I should note, however, that this move may not just be one made by Volkswagen because of a desire to make cleaner, greener cars, because under the Paris Climate Change Accord, something that pretty much every country in the world has signed on to, producing internal combustion engine vehicles becomes almost impossible in 10 to 15 years' time. Simply put, electric and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, plus any other zero tailpipe emission tech that may or may not come along, are truly the only way that automakers can meet these new tough emissions targets in order to satisfy the climate accord, regardless of if that automaker wants to do it or not. Which leaves us in a position where Volkswagen seems to be making the switch partly because it has to, and partly, maybe, because it wants to reinvent itself and get as far away from the Dieselgate scandal as possible. Plus, make more money, of course, as well. So why exactly is it going to take 8 years for Volkswagen to launch its last new internal combustion engine models? In answering this, I'm certainly not going to be making excuses, but it is worth noting that Volkswagen's timeline isn't really that far off other automakers. And BMW, for example, may have a goal of having just 7% of its vehicles internal combustion only by 2030. But if you add in the plug-in hybrid and hybrid options that it anticipates will fill its portfolio, 85% of its cars will still have some form of internal combustion engine by 2030. If we consider that Volkswagen's last generation of internal combustion engines will debut in 2026 model year cars, and if we assume that those cars will be new and that they will be in production for at least 6 to 8 years, we're still looking at Volkswagen cars in 2034 being sold, at least some of them, with just internal combustion engines. Granted, some of them, like BMW, will be hybrid and plug-in hybrid variants, but they will still have a suck, squeeze, bang, blow in there somewhere. And that's pretty disappointing, and it's probably not good news for electric car fans. But it's also worth noting that many countries, including Germany, are planning to ban the sale of vehicles with internal combustion engines by 2030. It's the reason why, for example, that Volvo has said its current internal combustion engines will be the last generation of engines it designs. Although, again, it's worth noting that Volvo engines do tend to stick around for a decade or more in various different models before they get retired. So if automakers aren't going to be allowed to sell internal combustion engine models in some countries after 2025 or 2030 or 2040, depending on which country and which regulations we're talking about, what's the point of Volkswagen launching new internal combustion engine models in 2026? Well, simply put, money. If Volkswagen can sell internal combustion engine models and make more money on them than it can on electric vehicles, it will. And so too will other automakers. The solution? more regulation on a global scale. Without it, we'll see internal combustion engine models developed and sold until we're at a point where it's economically no longer sensible to do so. And that might take a time. And that, sadly, is very frustrating for anyone wanting to see more zero-emission vehicles on the road. That's it. Don't forget to give us your thumbs up or your thumbs down, leave a comment, and as always, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thanks also to our Patreon supporters, without whom we'd never be able to make all of these shows for you to enjoy. If you fancy it, you can join them for yourselves at patreon.com/transport evolved. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep evolving.